Hello and welcome to another week of Core Balance Coaching. This week we're going to be talking about spinal decompression. We're going to talk about some of the various ways and treatments for spinal decompression. I will share my thoughts and opinions on the effectiveness of these treatments and also my preferred way to decompress the spine and some tips and tricks around that method, and as well as the ideal or optimal way to decompress the spine. So we're going to get to all that. First, we need to understand what decompression actually means and understand some of the problems with decompression before we can actually fully appreciate the benefits of this optimal way that I'm talking about. So hopefully everything's working okay. Hopped on a little late today. I was actually scrambling to get ready for you guys. I had a bit of a computer switch going on today, so hopefully everything's working. Please let me know in the chat if, just let me know that you can hear me and see me all right. And we're gonna go through this topic relatively expediently. I don't have a lot of images. This is more going to be explanation and logic for you. And I see that Jackie Smith Hasty says all good. Flying Goat, thank you. Sherry, thank you everybody for letting me know. It's always good to know that you can hear and see me. And so let's get right into it. Like I said, not a lot of images. I can look for some that might help just give you a visual of the spine, but I don't think it's going to be that important today. I don't think images are going to be a key component, as they have been in recent streams where I was talking about the quadratus lumborum or the piriformis. We're talking about an inversion table. You probably know what an inversion table is, and we'll talk about some other methods as well. So I'll probably put some images of the spine up as we go, maybe one like this, just so we can visualize together what's going on there. But so bring your listening ears today. And then as usual, we are going to answer all the questions that I possibly can in the chat, and then announce the Student Hub Student of the Week today as well. So I'm going to try and get through this topic in the next 10 minutes so that I can have more time to answer your questions, and because I know that's really important to you guys. So and I'm optimizing the size of this image for you guys as I speak. So give me just 1 second and then we will get started. So this view, I like this view. All right. So spinal decompression is, or otherwise known as traction, is a way to basically separate the vertebrae of the spine so that the discs can absorb fluid, or the proper word is imbibe fluid into the disc, and create some space there, right? So a lot of the problems associated with back pain, pretty much any diagnosis or condition of chronic lower back pain is going to be related to breakdown, degeneration, whether it's a bulging disc or a herniated disc or degenerative disc, stenosis, spondylolisthesis. All of it fall under this umbrella of things are breaking down, wearing down, and there's not enough support for the spine, so they are the spaces are getting smaller. So degenerative disc disease would be a perfect example of the disc. I'll show you the image now. So the disc is the space between the vertebrae, and if that disc is degenerating, we have less space there. And so we have decompression. We have various methods of decompression, and it's going to pull apart the vertebrae. So all of the vertebrae will have an axial force on them, like a longitudinal force, pulling the spine apart. And yes, that will that will open up the space, it will decompress the disc, and it will allow fluid, which is the majority of the contents of the disc, of the volume or the mass of the disc is primarily fluid. It will allow that fluid to go back into the disc. So that's a good thing, right? So one example would be an inversion table. And like I said, apologies, I don't have images for you today, but everybody knows the general idea of an inversion table. You hang from your ankles, you flip upside down, and you're basically just hanging from your ankles. And that will be one way to decompress. There are other ways as well. You can go into a physical therapy clinic or a chiropractor's office, and they'll sell you a treatment called spinal decompression. Well, really what they're doing is they're hooking you up to a traction device or a machine where you're typically laying on your back, and it pulls your upper body apart from your lower body. So they hook something up to your pelvis that kind of blocks your pelvis from lifting up, and it actually pulls your pelvis down. So it's pulling pelvis towards your feet, and then something that grabs your rib cage and pulls it up towards your head, and it's separating all the vertebrae and discs in between. And so that's going to decompress the spine. And a very similar effect as an inversion table. And so these are probably two of the most common ways or popular ways when people talk about spinal decompression. But there is another way that would be my preferred way, and that is hanging. So dead hangs, or even, if you're doing something active while hanging, so you're hanging from your arms, from your hands on a pull-up bar or some various thing. And that's another way to decompress the spine. So let's talk about, and I see a question from Gloria. I am going to get to the questions after I finish my spiel here, but I am going to prioritize relevant questions before I go to the top of the chat and answer, questions from various topics. So Gloria, I will get to that question as soon as I finish my spiel here. So let's talk about what can be some of the issues with spinal decompression. Well, when you take static tissues, which is a disc is a static tissue, ligaments are a static tissue, and you hang on them, it stretches those tissues out. Okay, so stretching is good for muscles, but muscles are dynamic tissues. Muscles are tissues that we have control over. They're hooked up, they're connected to our nervous system, so they have electrical wiring to them, and so we can go, hey, brain, contract this muscle and shorten it. But we can't do that with ligaments. And discs are just another form of a ligament with fluid inside. And so stretching ligaments is not necessarily the best thing to do. If you've ever had an ankle sprain or a knee injury, like an ACL sprain or MCL sprain, those are examples of traumatic overstretches of ligaments. And so it's not really the ideal thing to do for a ligament. It can kind of weaken the tissue, especially if it's done, intensely or abruptly. And then we have no way of contracting it or shortening it. So you have you have a lax ligament. And so that's how chronic sprains can happen. I've had chronic ankle sprains in the past. Because I had a really bad sprain once, and that ligament never returned to normal, and so my ankle was prone to more sprains. And so this can happen anywhere in the body. This can happen in the spine, and we don't necessarily want our ligaments to be loose or lax. They're supposed to have some tautness to them, and that's how they support things like the spine. And this image does not show ligaments. I do have this image, which is a fantastic representation of the ligaments around the spine. So this would be L5 and L4, and you can see that they're covered in ligaments. So when you're hanging upside down or you're hanging, passively without any muscle engagement, essentially you're hanging on your ligaments. Now, I say, that could be one of the problems, but you got to weigh the pros and cons. Maybe the benefits of decompression outweigh the con or the cost of giving a little stretch to your ligaments, and that may be possible. And so that would be up to the individual, based on your past and your history. And maybe there's only one way to find out, is to give it a try. And you're not going to have instant knowledge of the results. You got to, pay attention and listen to your body for a while after you do these types of decompression therapies. See, all right, the week following this decompression, do I feel better? Do I feel worse? Does my spine feel kind of loose? That wouldn't be a good thing if your lumbar spine feels kind of loose. And I've had that feeling as well. So we want stability in there. We want support in there. And so that's one potential problem, is the possibility of increasing or exacerbating an instability or a hypermobility in the spine, when our goal is actually the opposite. It's to stabilize and support the spine, like what these ligaments are actually doing. Now, there's another thing that I don't really love about spinal decompression, and this is the fact that the benefits or the effects of the decompression are temporary. It does not have, in general, it does not have long-term effects or lasting effects more than, say, a few hours. And that's because if you take the weight off of the spine, say, you can imagine pulling these vertebrae apart is going to decompress the disc in between the vertebrae. As soon as you stop pulling the vertebrae apart and you re-weight the vertebrae, you put it back in a weight-bearing position, there is no extra support that's been added. So you have the same amount of pressure or stress back on these vertebrae as you did prior to getting the decompression. And so it does not have any lasting effects in the way of providing support for the spine. You're just temporarily decompressing the disc, allowing some fluid to come back in, which will increase the space a little bit of in between the disc, as long as that fluid's in there. But within a matter of hours, that fluid's going to get squished back out of the disc. And that's what happens to all of us every day of our lives. You are taller in the morning when you wake up than you are at the end of the day when you go to bed, because throughout the day, your discs are losing fluid. Then you go back to bed, imbibe some more fluid into your discs, and you do it all over again the next day. And so this is absolutely 100% temporary effects and benefits. And so I'm much more in favor of long-term solutions that are going to have lasting effects beyond a matter of hours or even a matter of days. And so that's what's going to lead me into my optimal way, the preferred method of spinal decompression, which I'm going to get to in a few minutes here. But I have a little bit more elaborating to do on this current point that I'm making. So if it makes sense to you that if you take a spine, you pull it apart, and then you re-weight the spine, weight bearing again, that there hasn't been no more support added to the spine. It's just a purely temporary unweighting of the spine. Then you're back in the same exact situation you were before, but you have that potential problem that I talked about earlier, which is now your ligaments are a little bit stretched out. They're a little bit loose. And that does no good for you in a weight-bearing position, because in a weight-bearing position, the ligaments are best when they're taut. You can imagine just ropes going up your spine. You'd rather have the ropes be taut than loose and lax, because the spine's going to be able to kind of shift a little bit. So you have a temporary benefit for a potential long-term problem or cost to the decompression by hanging on your ligaments, because that's literally what you're doing. So that's the reason I don't like traditional decompression. So inversion table, spinal decompression, and I will say that there are some holes in my argument. One, if we talk about anecdotal evidence, there are situations and people where an inversion table really helps them. And so that person could benefit from inversion. And there are also situations where maybe somebody has an acute situation where there is a bulge. Say they have a bulging disc. I do have an image of a bulging disc, so I can show you that. Let me find it. Okay, we have a bulge in our disc here. Now, it is a compromised part of the disc, and most likely it's going to rebulge, but maybe there is a chance, maybe there is a possibility in the realm of possibility that decompressing this disc for a period of time and allowing the bulge to suck back in and then weight bearing on that disc again, maybe the bulge won't push out in the same direction or the same way that it's compressing a nerve. So it was able to decompress the nerve because the nerve was stuck in a certain position, trapped by the disc. And so these would be anecdotal, totally outlier situations where maybe decompression would be really good for you. So everything I'm saying today is not blanket absolute statements. I'm kind of going by logic, and I'm going by personal experience, and I would say in most cases you're not going to win the lottery there, and the bulge is going to push out in the same way that it did before, and if it pressed on a nerve before, it might actually press on the nerve again. And but I want to recognize that there are outliers out there, and everything I say is not absolute. It's not absolute truth. All right, so now we've talked about some of the problems. I want to talk about a way that you can combat some of these issues with decompression. So my favorite way of decompression is hanging, and that is because it really invites the possibility of adding some active elements to decompression. So you're hanging, from a pull-up bar, whatever. So you're unweighting your spine. You're not really intensely overstretching your ligaments, because most of the hanging is going through your arms and your upper body, where only your lower body is the amount of weight that is hanging on the ligaments, say L4-5 ligaments. It will be everything only below that. But you can combat that by doing some core engagement, doing maybe some healthy core contraction of your muscles and training those muscles in a decompressed state of the spine. And so you could actually be functionally training your body in this condition, which I find to be, it counteracts the problem. You're no longer overstretching your ligaments, because now you're hanging more on your muscles, and you're also training your muscles in a really healthy decompressed state. So that's the main reason why I like hanging, like dead hangs, or just hanging from your arms and pull-up bars. because you can add that active component. And so what kind of active things am I talking about? You could be doing, just core engagement. You could be doing knee lifts. You could be get creative with what you're doing with your legs and find the level of challenge that is appropriate for you. And I do have some lessons that are going to be going into the program for this exact specific thing very soon. The lessons are finished, and it's just about publishing them for you students. That's all we got to do left. So maybe potentially as early as next week, you'll be able to see these lessons on dead hanging with exercise. Now, I'm sure this begs the question, can't you add an active element, active exercises to an inversion table? And my answer is yes, you can do that. So, an inversion table, you're hanging from your ankles, you're usually up against a board on your back. So you could be engaging your core. Say if you're a core balance training student, you could be connecting your back anchor while in that inversion position. You could be doing various things that engage those muscles. So that would be a great way to combat the main con that I see with inversion, and also turn it into have more of a long-term benefit. Now you're training your neuromuscular system, ideally in a healthy way. So healthy core engagement. I would not be doing crunches or curl-ups or sit-ups from an inversion table if you already have a compromised spine. Somebody with a healthy spine could get away with that, but somebody that has a compromised spine, those are not the best exercises to be doing for core stabilization, spinal support. That's why there are no sit-ups or crunches in the program whatsoever. Over 12 modules, not a single lesson has those exercises in it. And so therefore, I would definitely not be doing it in an inversion state where you have even more weight to lift up off of gravity. So it would be more just core engagement, connecting your back anchor, potentially some other things that you could do under inversion. And then that brings me to decompression in a clinic, physical therapy clinic, chiropractic clinic. I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do. You have an electric machine that's pulling you apart, pulling your spine apart. And, they typically you're under supervision, instruction to just lay there and let the machine do it to you. So that would probably be my least favorite form of spinal decompression. All right, so the last point that I have for spinal decompression is the most optimal, long-lasting, and actually most effective way to decompress the spine. And if you know me and you've heard me talk before, you probably can guess that it is related to intra-abdominal pressure. And I'm looking for some images I have here because this is better explained with visuals. So this visual is okay. So this is just showing the core as basically a cylinder. And you can see the diaphragm here. And as you inhale, the diaphragm is coming down like a parachute that's inverting, and it's actually pulling air into your lungs. So the diaphragm contracting, coming down like that is how you inhale. That creates a vacuum above, sucking air into your lungs, but it actually creates pressure down below, which increases your intra-abdominal pressure. And intra-abdominal pressure is directly, if you understand physics, directly related. There's a linear relationship. As you increase pressure in a system, it increases the stability within that system. Okay, very simple. Increased pressure equals increased stability. And that's what we are seeking for our spine. A spine that looks like this is unstable. And we want to stabilize it. We want to create pressure around that. That is the best and most effective possible way on planet Earth to provide support and stability for your spine. Way more effective than contracting muscles, because all muscles do is shorten. And so for all the muscles that run along your spine, running up and down, I want to look for an image of showing muscles right now. We contract any of these muscles. Here's from the back, here's from the front. We contract any of these muscles. All we're doing is shortening them, and they're compressing. So they're increasing compression on the spine. Muscles do not decompress the spine. They have no way to do that. But if you can keep those muscles engaged around the cylinder, like Mary Masterson's Coke can analogy, a cylinder that is pressurized, like a Coke can that's unopened, has incredible stability inside. And so we keep the muscles around our cylinder engaged in a static, healthy way, and we inhale into that can decompress the spine. And I wish I could find this one image for you. All these images are going to be added to this video later. This is going to be turned into, edited in post and turned into, an informative video for you guys. So here's another image I like. No, that's not working. All right, forget the images for now. Back to you guys. So if we understand that analogy of the core being a cylinder and our breath, our inhale, increasing intra-abdominal pressure, and that pressure increasing the stability of that system, it actually can have an effect of decompressing the spine. And I'm at the point where now I have to show the image that explains this the best, and it's going to take me a second to find it, but I will have it to you within 30 seconds, I promise. Breathing. Okay, this one shows it pretty decently well. How's that? Okay, this could be our core. And if you contract the core around the egg and increase the pressure within that egg or whatever this is, it will actually lengthen, if that makes sense. And so this is a really healthy, beneficial way to decompress the spine through pressure. And the cool thing about it is this is done with our breathing, because that's the only way we can actually increase pressure in our cylinder, in our core, is through our breath. And we breathe all day long. So if we can increase the quality of our breathing, and you can continue to practice this throughout the day, I have all kinds of images that show this. This is IAP, is intra-abdominal pressure. So if we can close off the leaks, especially in the front with our abdominal muscles, of pressure escaping our core, when we inhale, we will be providing a gentle, subtle amount of decompression in the spine. You can see the arrows separating. I mentioned the Coke can analogy. Also, anyone who's worn a corset brace can relate to that feeling. We want to turn our abdominal muscles into a corset. And let's get the Coke can analogy image going for you guys here. Here's another one. Image of how the diaphragm is related. And so in the picture in B, this is an unhealthy muscular system because the diaphragm is angled forward. all the pressure is escaping out of the front of this person's belly. The pelvic floor is actually also angled forward. And this is a really common pattern where the pressure is lost out the abdomen. And you can see increased pressure on the posterior aspect of the spine, where if we can get the muscles in balance here, we can close off that leak off of the front of the abdomen, and that diaphragm comes down. It will increase the pressure inside the system, creating the Coke can analogy of a very stable system. Okay, so that is my absolute favorite way to decompress the spine, is through your breath. One of the most powerful ways to do it. And like I said, this is all day long. This is not a temporary 15-minute thing. This is, if you can improve the quality of your breathing, the muscular balance of the muscles around your core and the diaphragm and also the pelvic floor, you can create this analogy on a long-term basis and be walking around with a spine that has a constant source of decompression in it. Okay, so that's really what I would want you to walk away with from this stream today, is if I want to decompress my spine, the first place I'm going to look at is my breath. The second place I'm going to look at is outside treatments. Okay, hanging from a bar is a great way to do it. Yes, it's temporary, but if I add some active components, maybe even breathing while doing a dead hang. And that is certainly something that I do myself. And anytime I'm doing anything, I'm also considering my breathing. And so that has been one of, probably, if I could say, it's the most effective thing of all for me that I've done, and that's been beneficial to my spine, which has been extremely compromised in the past over a decade of just really unhealthy posture and taxing my spine. I still have a compromised spine, so I still need to use these strategies to stay healthy, and breathing is the one thing that if I could only do one thing for the rest of my life, it would be using my breath. It doesn't matter where I am. I could be on an airplane. I could be in a car ride. I could be in an environment that doesn't allow for anything else. I can still breathe and still use the technique that we use in core balance training, day 0 lesson, to my benefit. So I'm going to switch over to the chat. That's the lesson for today. Those are my opinions. Take them for what you want, and take them with a grain of salt. I encourage you to always do your own research. That's how I formed a lot of my opinions, is through my own research, and don't take one single source, like me even, as the truth or the answer. Form your own opinion. And what makes sense to you. These are the things that make sense to me. I don't know. I'm just sharing them with you. So let's field some questions. I'm going to get you guys here visible. Hello, chat. Good to see you. And we're going to look for some relevant questions as I scroll up, and then I will be starting from the top and making my way down. So I do remember that there was a Gloria that had a relevant question. Hasty Kaufman says, how do you do it? By breathing. How should we breathe better? So it is a technique that I teach day 0 in the program. The gist of it is you sending your breath into your lower back. I can't give the entire lesson right now just for the sake of time, but just imagine breathing into your lower back, and that is an extremely effective way to start activating the muscles on the front and close off that leak in the front of your abdomen. All right, so we're going to just kind of go up the chat here and look for any relevant questions. we have a comment from Anne Shifsky. Best way to decompress the spine is get on the floor and work on my core. Heck yeah! So that is a form of decompression. It's something I didn't really mention, but anytime you get horizontal, this is a bonus for anyone that's staying after my spiel. Anytime you get horizontal, your discs are imbibing fluid. And so even just 15 minutes, studies show that the first hour of laying down at night, going to sleep at night, the first hour was when the majority of the fluid imbibes back in your disc. But within that hour, the majority of the fluid comes in the first 15 minutes of that hour. So even laying down for 15 minutes, heck, even 5 minutes, you're going to get some benefit from that. And so you're talking about going horizontal, but you're also talking about doing some active core engagement and contraction. Yeah, that doubles the benefit there. So love it. I'm gonna adjust my computer here. All right, so we're gonna just scroll up. I'm gonna answer Gloria's question, and I think we're just gonna go to the top. Gloria said, do you have to go completely upside down on the inversion table? No, you don't have to go completely upside down to get the benefits, and I would actually recommend that you don't go completely upside down, because that problem, that con that I talked about earlier, the more weight that you hang on a ligament, the more they're going to get stretched out. And like I said, you don't really want to stretch out your ligaments. It's not beneficial to you to stretch ligaments. And so we want to give enough weight to kind of decompress the discs, let some fluid come in, and not our entire body weight hanging on ligaments. And so, yeah, I would only go, some percentage of upside down, maybe, 50%, which would be 45 degrees inversion, right? And then experiment. Add some, subtract some, see what feels good for you, but you definitely don't have to go upside down to get the benefits, and I don't even recommend going upside down. Mark Curtis, I have an inversion table, but I've not used it in a while. Should I start using it again? So, it's kind of a long answer, and the whole point of my presentation is the answer, but I will say in short, no, I think there's much better ways to decompress your spine. All right, so I'm going to the top. Here I am at the top. Let me just go to live chat. Sometimes that changes things. We got Steve Katz at the top, and we're just going to answer every question all the way down. I'm probably going to go for like 40 minutes right now. We'll see how long I go. As long as I possibly can, until my brain poops out. So I'm just starting week 2, struggled a bit with seeing my legs lift unweight when trying to drive the pubic bone anchor, even when relying on the glutes. Advice, more time? All right. So Steve Katz, yeah, certainly more time. I believe, I have no doubt in my mind that with practice, and also as your muscles around your core, particularly your hip flexors, start to restore balance in them, it will be more natural and easier for you to extend at the hips, right? So in order to unweight your legs in the way that I describe, it requires some hip extension range of motion. That is restricted by tight hip flexors. So doing something like the bridge can help lengthen your hip flexors and give you some more hip extension range of motion, because you might just very well be restricted by super tight muscles. It's extremely common. And even contracting your glutes is not going to push you through that restriction. But as those muscles, those hip flexors, get lengthened through the bridge, that's why we do the bridge first. And also as your glutes get stronger, and then you're playing that tug of war, which I hope you read the article in the program about the tug of war that we're playing between the glutes and the hip flexors. the glutes can then win the tug of war and be able to bring your hips into extension. But the main thing is you want that movement to go through the hips and not into the lower back, arching the lower back, contributing to the problem. We need to get hip extension for a healthy function, for a healthy body, to be able to walk. You should have hip extension to walk in a healthy way. And if you don't have it, what should be going into your hips as you step past your foot, that should be hip extension. It's not going into your hips because you have a restriction. It's going into your lower back. And so that's why walking can actually be painful for people. Every step you take is a little yank on the lumbar spine. So you got to get the hip extension. You got to keep working on it. And should you continue through the program as you're continuing to work on module 2? You could do that. I'm not going to say that'll give you more benefit. I think the most benefit would be mastering module 1 and module 2. But it is possible to continue through and work on the foundations in the beginning. So you say, also with hamstrings and quads as supporting cast, or so it seems, is there any benefit to working on stretching them? Both are tight for me. I'm going to give you the short answer here. I don't see any benefit in stretching the hamstrings. And I can go down an entire rabbit hole with that, but I'm going to have to just leave you with that, and you'll have to take it for what it is. I don't stretch hamstrings. I don't really see any benefit in it unless they're so tight that they're restricting you from hip hinging properly to pick something up off the ground or do functional movements. But just as a source of relief, I don't use hamstring stretching for relief. It's only for being able to hip hinge properly and deadlift to pick something up, really. Quads are a hip flexor, especially the major quad, the rectus femoris. So when I talk about hip flexors being tight, I am grouping in the quads in that conversation, and the bridge will absolutely help to lengthen the rectus femoris. So bridging should be enough. I don't add passive stretching to the routine or the program at any point. It's my general viewpoint on passive stretching is the reason why. And I've talked about passive stretching a lot in the past. We want to be doing active stretching. So a bridge is an example of actively stretching the quads, has lasting results and really no downside. Allison Polson, do you have any recommendations for neck pillows for long flights? I don't. I've never really used one, so I don't have a recommendation on one. So my only thought looking at people that have used them is you would want to have enough support that you're not really cranked at your neck. I mean, it would have to be pretty thick for me because I'm a big guy to be able to get enough support that's going to keep me from going like pretty cranked. So that's my only recommendation. Sean Mulhern I think that's what it is. I'm curious when to tip up to different progressions of the anchor challenges. I think I can do them, but am unsure. For example, when doing the bridge, I find the lifting my right leg only, left leg down, is harder to maintain the engagement, but only on that side. That's a really great observation, Sean. That's one that's going to help you to address. So step 1 is becoming aware of it. You've nailed that. Step 2 is going to be relentlessly address that imbalance so that when you lift the right leg or the left leg, it's about equal amount of effort, equal amount of challenge, equal amount of endurance. So you're balancing out your left and right sides. That's absolutely going to help your body to restore balance in your body left and right. So that's where you should be working. So my advice is with progressions is I can't give really specific advice because it's going to be different for everyone. The progression that you're at depends on your fitness level, and we have all types of fitness levels. So the general rule is work where you're at in your current state of fitness. What level of challenge is going to be enough to make you improve but not too much that it's going to set you back by overdoing it. And that level of challenge is typically around like 4 to 10% beyond your current level of competency. So you want to be challenged to the point where you're not actually able to do it easily or sustain it, and you're getting to the point of fatigue. So fatigue is the reason you stop, not choice. Like, oh, I'm done with this set because I decided that I'm going to stop at rep number 12. That is not the way to get benefit from exercise or maximize your benefit from exercise. The reason you should stop doing a set, whether it's holding the bridge for a certain amount of time or doing repetitions of some lift, the reason you should stop is because of fatigue. And it shouldn't be too much challenge to where it damages the tissues or breaks you, but it's a certain level of fatigue that is like, ideally it's like 4% beyond your current capacity, where all right, I got to stop and take a break so that I can do another set. And that is really maximizing the benefit of exercise. And that's gonna require progression to because you're gonna get stronger over time, and then you have to challenge yourself more. So once you get to a level where you're like, all right, the front anchor challenge isn't really doing it for me anymore, I can just keep going forever, I should probably consider a progression to where, all right, I'm challenging myself and I get tired and I need to take a break after a period of time. And I'm not saying it should be 12 reps. I think that's a absolutely is nowhere in the program you will see me say do 3 sets of 10. In this program, we're training for life. So some things in life you have to do for 5 minutes, right? So you can continue to engage your core for a long period of time, and that can be your challenge. Is endurance is a really, really great thing to train for. So you can do the front anchor challenge for minutes, not just 12 arm lifts. That doesn't really correlate, or it's not really specific to real life. So that's the way I want you to look at it, is how can this benefit me in real life? All right, I can engage my core now for 5 minutes and do a challenging thing. Well, that might allow me to go water skiing, because water skiing for 5 minutes takes a lot of core engagement, and I could do that without damaging my spine now, because I can have a healthy support for my spine. So I kind of went on a rant there, but I feel like that information needs to be repeated, and it can be beneficial for a lot of people to hear. All right, Lisa Bender, greetings from the very hot 94 degrees Hudson Valley. Wow, it's getting hot over there. I was in Vegas not for gambling or anything, for a concert about a week and a half ago, and it was 110 degrees. It was the hottest it had ever been in recorded history that early in the year. It was pretty crazy to be there. It was like June 7th. It was like 110 degrees. All right, Alyssa. Oh, by the way, happy national holiday, Juneteenth Day to everyone. I got to recognize that. So a lot of people have work off today. So, celebration. All right, we got Alyssa DeCaro. Can you clarify the specific deep core muscles we are aiming to engage through the core anchor exercises? I'm using your wonderful techniques with clients, and I want to be able to clearly describe them. Is Alyssa going down? Nope, no more Alyssa. So, cool, Alyssa. I'm really happy to hear that you are passing on the techniques, and with your clients, if they are really wanting to hear names of muscles, you can give them names of muscles, and I will tell you those right now. But there's a reason why I don't focus on names of muscles, because it doesn't benefit in any way to know the names, because it actually pulls us away from the true focus, which is feeling. We are feeling our body, and also it's not in alignment with one of my central beliefs about the body is that the muscles work synergistically with each other. So I'm more a fan of naming muscle groups like the abdominals or the glutes. So these are all groups of muscles that have a similar goal, similar purpose, similar function, and they can only accomplish that function properly when they work together. Because just one muscle, say the transverse abdominis engaging, it only has transverse fibers. So it's only going to be able to pull like this. But if you, in real life, we do not only need this level of engagement. We might need a little bit like that or a little bit like that. And that's where the obliques come in, right? And so in real life, we're doing all levels of movement. And so it's the muscles really, it's just one group, one system, and they have intimate communication with each other. And like, hey, you fire now, you fire that fiber. And it all happens subconsciously when I just say, oh, I want to reach for a cup out of the cupboard. And so that's the way I look at the body. It's feeling, it's core engagement. You want to name specific muscles, it's going to be transverse abdominis, internal oblique, external oblique, maybe rectus abdominis a little bit for movement. Definitely a lot for movement. Maybe a little bit for non-movement, just a little extra support in there. But that's just going to complicate things in my experience. It's just a little harder to focus on what I desire the student to focus on, which is the feeling of engagement as one thing rather than separate things with separate muscles being taking apart the body. We want it to work as a unit. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And again, very happy to hear that you are sharing with your clients and passing on the things that are working for you. All right, Diana, I spent $5,000 in spinal decompression, had a chiropractic practice. I think I've become worse since then, but your program is helping me tremendously. Thank you for being such an amazing teacher. You're very welcome, Diana. You are not alone in spending on spinal decompression. And I'm sorry if it was contributing to you getting worse, but the only thing lost was the money. And you can restore everything that if the decompression had any negative effect, you can restore all of that through this healthy core engagement. So, I allow myself to have one lesson per year, one financial lesson per year, a mistake that taught me something that I can carry with me the rest of my life. And so maybe that was that for you. But yeah, a lot of people pay for spinal decompression. I've shared my opinion about it. It's temporary at best, and maybe it led you here. So it could have been a gift. Thank you for sharing, Diana. Jessica Washington. Hi, Dr. Ryan. I've graduated from CBT and feel great when I'm just doing CBT program exercises and walking. No back pain, no nerve pain in my toes. But when I attempt to expand my workouts back to other movements, I experience back tightness and an increase in nerve pain again. Clearly, I'm not fully engaging my core with these other exercises. Do you have any advice on how to advance past CBT and get back to things I used to do before my injury? I have grade 1 spondy and pars defect. If that helps, thank you for all you do. You've changed so much for me. This is a fantastic share and question, Jessica. I think that this question applies to everyone. So if you're here and listening, this applies to you. It's about how to, you're traversing from a controlled environment, core balance training and guided program, into a totally uncontrolled environment, life. And how do you integrate the teachings into that? So it's going to come down. So my advice is going to be something you've heard before, but we need to hear things over and over again. I need to hear that sugar's bad for you several times a year to remind me, right? I already know it, but I need to watch a Netflix documentary to get back on my game with nutrition, right? So here it is, back to you. It has to be gradual. So if you go from doing the back anchor and say, I figured out the back anchor engagement and it really works, it really helps, I feel better, I'm going to go play golf because I have the core engagement. Well, swinging a golf club is an incredibly complex movement that requires your brain to focus on 17 different things at once, from your hand grip to your hip rotation to the rotation of your foot to hitting the ball, right? And where you're going to hit the ball and all these things. And so you're not able to focus on all those things at once and also keep the core engaged. So it's really a mental challenge. You have the core engagement, you know how to do it. Now you need to mentally challenge yourself in a gradual way to learn how to do that, maintain that engagement, make it natural to the point where you can do other things and focus on those other things. Say it was swimming or playing tennis or doing yoga or whatever. Even yoga is very complex movements, to mentally be able to focus on those other things and still do the core engagement. That takes time. And the gradual way to do it would be to add one extra complexity at a time. So in the program, we do the core engagement, back anchor. Then we learn how to lift one knee and set it back down, right? The back anchor challenge. It's the marching. So you stay engaged, you lift one knee, you set it back down. That's one complexity we added. Lift the other knee, set it back down. Then we add another complexity, the bridge. We're bridging up. All right, we have two complexities because you have to maintain your pelvic position, you have to bridge up, you have to breathe, all these things. So once you get up to in the program, we're doing controlled movements by the end. We're doing running man, for example. That's pretty complex. Maybe there's 5 different things going on there. Still not as much as a lot of sports and activities, right? Playing basketball, 17 different things going on. So you got to just go to the next level from where you're at. Where do you feel comfortable in the program? Maybe we got you to 4 different complexities. Even doing a squat is it's like a deadlift plus another movement. So the squat is more complex than a deadlift. So maybe that's where you're at. You're like, I can do a deadlift because it's just a hip hinge. But once I do the squat where I add in the hip hinge plus the knee bend, I start to lose my connection. So that's where I'm at. So that's where I need to train. I still need to be in a controlled environment. I still need to go to the gym or have a barbell so that I can continue to practice this level of complexity with my engagement. All right, I got the squat down now. Let's go to the next thing. And it's just adding one more layer at a time. So that's my advice, gradual progression. All right, hopefully that helps. And then I think that, so spondy, you're going to be right there with me. I have a grade 1. Mine probably was a grade 2 at one point, but I think it's a grade 1 now. And so you can get back to full life with that. You just got to protect that spondy, and the core engagement is the way to do it. So want to make sure you walk away with that. You can do the life you want to live. You just got to be able to have that focus to protect it while doing other complex things. All right. For some reason, I just want to scroll down to the bottom of the chat and see if everything is still making sense. All right. I got a positive comment from Maja. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, really great questions today. And let's keep going. So Linda Reed, I'm just starting module 2. I'm usually very active hiking, biking, swimming, and lifting weights. Can you give me some guidance on continuing these activities at this point? I don't want to just stop. I don't want you to just stop either. I want you to continue to do the things that you were doing before you started core balance training. I just want you to start integrating the things that you're learning into your activities. So that is my general advice, is don't stop your life. Don't stop doing what you're doing unless those things are harming you. If they're harmful, definitely stop them, because the recipe for success is do more of what's working and less of what's hurting. So cut out anything that's hurting. But if it's not hurting and you can improve the quality of doing those things, for example, hiking, biking, swimming can be kind of complex, but lifting weights for sure, by adding a healthy core engagement to them, continue doing them. Just improve the quality of how you do them. The one thing I will say not to do is don't add new things that you weren't doing before the program. Don't introduce new hobbies, new activities, new treatments to your life while doing core balance training, because then we won't know what's helping, what's hurting. You get worse, you won't know what caused it because you introduced too many new things at once. Core balance training, we're always introducing new things, right, every week. So we want to control the amount of new things that you add to your life and continue doing your life the way it was. And that is the most controlled environment for you to assess. Am I getting better? Am I getting worse? I've only changed one thing, and that's doing this program. So I'm continuing everything else as I was before. That's a diagnostic approach, and I want all of you to take that. So we're moving on. T-adrenaline. I bought a spinal decompression machine. Looks like the one in the picture before I started the course. Looking forward to learning more. I hope you learned more. Ms. Tran, hi, I'm looking at PRP option to accelerate my recovery and wondering if you can share about your experience. Do we have to find a specialized doctor in SI joints to do it, or could it be easily done by anyone? I would say that any doctor could do it, but someone who intimately knows the anatomy of the SI joint, meaning they have stuck needles in many SI joint before, will be better. So, getting PRP is going to be beneficial. I don't really have there's no downside except it costs money. So it's going to be beneficial. How much benefit you get is going to be how well placed those injections are into the right spot. You want the injection to be into the ligament that is compromised, and that's going to take a targeted approach, and you're going to want to have somebody who's good. And so, yeah, that's my answer. But any doctor knows generally where to inject, and so you'll be able to get some benefit. I would point to the spot of pain and be like, right there. Inject right there. That's what I would do if I went into the doctor. All right, Hannah. Hello from Scotland. Hi. Hello from California. SI left side and low back pain has reduced a lot since starting the program. Great to hear that, Hannah. But I feel a lot of new pain in the back of my left thigh all day long. Any tips? Thank you. So back of your left thigh is, if it's only one side, because you said thigh singular, so I'm assuming it's just one side. Oh yeah, left. Is an issue. So left-right issue. It's potentially that the program is helping because we're in the beginning of the program, we're restoring balance, not left to right. We're restoring balance front to back of your body, front of the body, back of the body, muscular balance between those muscles. We don't start addressing left-right imbalances till later in the program, and it's possible that it's changed some things with your left and right. So you want to be aware of that. You likely have a left-right imbalance going on. Otherwise, you would have the symptom in both thighs, right? If you were symmetrical on both sides. And I will also say, so focus on that. Anytime you're doing an exercise, compare left and right. Do my strategy. Work more on the side that's not as good, the one that you don't want to do, and get it even with the better side, strength-wise, endurance-wise. Also, I just want to say, back of your left thigh might be nerve, like if it's pain, like cramping pain, spasmy pain, or nervy type pain at all. That is an area where it could be nerve, or it may not be. It may be muscular strain or overuse. So that's going to be I would need more information to know which one that is. But either way, if it's nerve, you definitely want to listen to it. You don't want to push through. You want to figure out, pay attention to your daily life and your body and figure out what are the things that you do that make it worse and what are the activities that you do that improve it, and do more of what's working. But yeah, I would need more information on the type of pain to be able to give you any more advice than that. But the tips are left, right, focus left, right, get that back in balance, and also be aware that pain moves. Pain doesn't just evaporate, it moves out of your body with this approach that we're taking, which is restoring muscular balance. We're tuning different parts of your body. And as you're tuning one part, another part gets affected. It might get out of tune. So we're doing it like we're tuning an instrument, and things will move. Resonances will move through an instrument as you're tuning it. And then ideally we get back to balance throughout the system and it moves out of your body. So yeah, expect pain to move. All right, sometimes in the front of the left thigh as well. So definitely points a little more towards nervy, but it can't be for sure. But yeah, if it's nervy, don't push through it and don't do things that cause it. You want to kind of avoid irritating that nerve. So you got to listen to your body to figure out what those things are. What are your thoughts on radiofrequency ablation of the L4-5S1? I don't have any personal experience with it. I don't have any clinical experience with it. Well, I do have one. I've had one patient that had an unsuccessful, but that was just one case. Typically, it seems like there's going to be some pros and cons to that. It's going to probably be up to educating yourself, use the internet, use doctors, talk to people. I unfortunately I can't offer you much there. Personally, I think it would be a last resort thing for me. Yeah, last resort. Vince Reddy, I heard that you recently added some new modules to the course. Can you comment on what those are and whether it would be beneficial for students in the course to go back and watch them? Yeah, absolutely. So they're not new modules, they're new lessons. Every time we release one, it gets announced in the Student Hub. So if you go into the Student Hub, you'll see announcements on those lessons. The last one was module 7, day 4. So that will be the last one. And I can't remember the ones before that, but there's more coming. Keep an eye on the Student Hub for those announcements. And yes, it would be beneficial for you to go back and not only watch them, because the benefit doesn't come from watching them, to actually practice what's being taught. So great question, Vince. Thanks for bringing that to light for other students as well to be aware. There are new lessons going in every week. Basic bag lady, I have an unstable spondy at L4-5. I'm concerned that the front anchor challenge position may be mimicking the bend at the hip I had to do for my x-ray. Please let me know if this is the case. The bend at the hip I had to do for my x-ray. I don't think I have enough background information to understand what you mean by that. So you had x-rays, you had dynamic x-rays so that they could diagnose you with unstable. So you had to do different movements with the x-rays, and they made you bend at the hip. So I would say that it should not be mimicking that. It is flexing the hip, but in order to affect a spondy, the hip is not flexing the hip is not going to irritate a spondy. It's flexing at the spine or extending at the spine. That's going to primarily extending or backward bending the spine is what's going to irritate the spondy. So the front anchor challenge does not do that. It should be okay and totally fine for a spondy. It's actually quite a safe position for a spondy. But make sure that you watch the lesson where I talk about the collapsing of the lumbar spine. You do not want to allow your lumbar spine to collapse during this exercise, and that is accomplished, not allowing it to collapse is accomplished through the pubic bone to rib cage connection, that core engagement, that front anchor connection. So as long as you maintain that connection, you will be totally fine. Don't let that lumbar spine collapse. And that's all in the video, in the lesson. Marcella, I have grade 1 spondy L4-5S1 and facet arthropathy. Recently, my new PT introduced cat-cow. I do cat-camel and cobra pose, which I found very weird because it involves extension. He insisted it is okay for me to do a little extension. What is your opinion? Also want to start being more active. I was wondering if biking would be right for someone with spondy. Grade 1 spondy is not severe. It is okay to do a little extension, but that's certainly not what I would be focused on for my rehab process. My rehab process would be learning how to prevent extension from going into that spondy, which would make it potentially worse, and learn how to extend through the joints around the spondy. So especially the hips, you're going to benefit significantly more from training hip extension than extending through that spondy, through those levels of your spine. So you got two, I don't know if you have two spondies or what, but you named two levels here, L4-5 and L5-1. So this is the bottom of your spine, which is unstable a little bit. That's the nature of a spondy. And so the goal is to stabilize it, not to be stretching those ligaments with cobra pose would be the one I would probably just not be doing. And if I just would be focusing more on the cat, where your back is arched up, than the camel or the cow, because that's going to be, arching it in the way that might irritate the spondy. So I don't know anything about your physical therapist, but his viewpoints don't align exactly with mine. That's all. Is biking okay for a spondy? Yeah, biking's okay. The act of biking is not going to hurt your spondy, but once you get off the bike, your hip flexors are probably going to be tight because you were just exercising, training your body in the sitting position. And sitting is a position that tightens the hip flexors. It's the fetal position. And so you're going to want to cross-train before and after, primarily after you get off the bike, to reopen your hips up, lengthen those hip flexors so that when you're walking around, those hip flexors aren't yanking on your spondy, causing more problems. So biking itself is not going to hurt. It's the effect that biking has on your body when you get off the bike, where it brings your body into the imbalance that we're trying to combat, trying to reverse through core balance training. It's core balance training. That's the imbalance we're trying to balance out. Hello, Sherry. Hello from Michigan. Hope all is well with you and your family with the crazy weather and wildfires out there. So we are not experiencing any of that, luckily, fortunately. It's been nice weather and no smoke, but I do know some people that are in the smoke. And yeah, I guess it's been pretty windy, which is why the wildfires. So thank you, Sherry. Always good to see you in here. Hope you're doing well too over there in Michigan. Jackie Smith. All right, we got a response. Oh, this is from the sound check. Lori, thank you and your knowledgeable staff for all you do. Yes, CBT Dream Team, thank you to all of them for their amazingness. I second that. I'm so happy with the changes in my body. I'm excited for the future. Thank you for sharing that, Lori. Basic Bag Lady, I had my husband take our inversion table apart because it caused me pain with my unstable spondy. Yeah, so I never really mentioned this during the actual my spiel, but if there was someone who should not do a spondy, it would be a person with spondylolisthesis or any form of an existing instability in their spine. Because hanging on your ligaments through something like an inversion table is going to take those unstable ligaments and make them more lax, more stretched out, and contribute to the instability in your spine. So that would be the one person where I would say, probably don't do an inversion table. Probably don't do spinal decompression therapy. If you're going to hang, make it an active hang and engage your muscles in a healthy way so that you're not hanging on those already stretched out ligaments and stretching them out even more. So that's a good point. Thank you for sharing that, basic bag lady. I know it wasn't a question, but it was a really good point, and I'm glad you took your inversion table apart for you. Now, that might not be true for everyone, but certainly somebody with an instability in their spine. I hope there was a sports-safe way to decompress. Yeah, so that was, hopefully you got that from the stream. Spondy safe way, yeah. So breathing for sure is extremely safe. Michelle, I tried inversion and gave me sciatic at the beginning of all my troubles. Oh, so sorry to hear that, Michelle. Everything I said, yep, so right in alignment. I use yoga child's pose to loosen up the lower back. Is this recommended? So this is a much more mild version, Mark Curtis. This is a much more mild version of, stretching ligaments, decompressing, because you're not hanging on your ligaments with your body weight. You are stretching muscles primarily, and you are maybe the ligaments are getting stretched a little bit, but it's not going to have nearly the force that I've been talking about in this stream. But this does bring up another point, and I am to the last question mark, and we did go 40 minutes, so I was about right. So Mark Curtis, if you're still here, I have my whole viewpoint on stretching, which is, personally, I do not stretch my muscles in the traditional way. I do not do static stretching. Student of the week and prepared question. Thank you. Got the message. Can I hide this? All right. Got it. Oh, I retracted it. Unpin. I don't know. It'll go away. Thank you for the reminder. So stretching. Don't really do it. Why don't I do it? It's temporary. Stretching can have temporary relief, but the body is tightening those muscles for a reason. The body is giving you some form of what it thinks is a benefit by tightening those muscles. Something's going on in your body, and it feels like the thing that it needs to do to protect your body is tighten muscles, and that is a protection mechanism. And so by stretching them out, you're just undoing this mechanism of the body. And so what I recommend is to get to the root of the problem. Typically, the body is protecting the spine from damage, and typically that damage is coming from not enough support, right? The wear and tear on the spine is coming from not enough support. Oh, okay. Carlos left a message. I gotta give special treatment. I've never given special treatment, but I gotta give special treatment today because the company person, this brilliant person that we've hired to redesign our website, is a student in the program, and he asked a question. So I'll get to that next. Anyway, Mark Curtis, finish your thought. I know I've been interrupted a couple times, but just want to say, I was talking about stretching, and so we want to get to the root of the problem. Muscles tighten up primarily to protect a spine that doesn't have enough support. It's breaking down, it's getting wear and tear because it doesn't have enough support. So we give the spine more support through core engagement, muscular balance, the things we teach in the program. And then those muscles that are tightening up as a protective mechanism actually can feel safe to let go. And that's what I've found personally in my own body. After spending years, I would stretch for 2 to 3 hours a day. I would just stretch freaking as much as possible. and I was in the cycle of stretching. Well, I found something that actually worked for me on a long-term benefit, completely stopped stretching, and those tight muscles actually resolved themselves. So that's the long-term solution. If you need temporary relief to, because in child's pose we'll give that to you, then I'm not saying don't do it, but consider everything I said, that it is tightening for a reason. So there's other ways to go around it to address upstream of the tightness. All right, so that was the last question. Carlos is here, so thank you for that. Ostia, I probably would have never found it. Here is Carlos. So like I said, yeah, so our website was originally designed in 2020. It's things have changed a lot since then. I think it was actually 2019 when our website was, the current version of our website was designed. Core balance training has grown a lot. We've just improved a lot of areas, and so we are improving our website, redesigning it. It's going to be way better. We're going to have a blog and all these resources free, and it's going to be great. Carlos is the man behind that, and so when I just want to give a shout out. Thank you, Carlos Flores, Phi Web Studio, and you're also a student in the program. Why does the inversion table sometimes cause sciatic nerve pain? I have a bulging disc at L4-5 that I previously had surgery. This is a really good question. Carlos, I was expecting you to just come out with some kind of like boilerplate question just so you can, because I told you to ask one, but you actually asked a really good one, and it's super relevant, and it's related to another question or multiple shares that we've had in the chat today where students have said, I did inversion and it caused me sciatica. I saw two comments like that. So why? The question is, why does that happen? So we're going to go to my image that I showed earlier of a bulging disc. Here we are. And we've got a disc that is compromised. Let's see if I can make this even better. Nope, that didn't work. That's not very good. But you can see, you get the gist of it. You get the gist of it from here. So we've got a disc. The disc has compromised tissue over here. The tissue is stretched out. It's not holding the contents of the disc in properly. And so that's why it's bulging. Maybe there was too much pressure, too much compression, too much wear and tear on this disc, and it broke down this wall over here of the disc, and the contents are pushing out, just like a herniation. Essentially, it's think about any kind of abdominal herniation, a hernia. That's what I meant to say, just like a hernia. So it's pushing out. Now, let's take this compromised tissue and let's stretch it, pull on it, tug on it. This is what inversion does. This is what decompression does. It's stretching. You're hanging a lot of weight, say half of your body weight. For me, that'd be a 100-pound weight. I'm taking a 100-pound weight and I'm hanging it on this ligament right here, this disc. How is that going to affect the compromised tissue that's too stretched out, too lax, too broken down? It's going to stretch it out even more. It's going to potentially make the problem actually worse. And so that is what passive hanging does. That's what passive decompression does, is it stretches out tissues and could potentially, yes, contribute to a bulge or sciatica. This is all theoretical from me. I'm not referencing studies when I say these words, but it does make logical sense to me. I hope that makes sense to you, that hanging weight on a tissue stretches that tissue. So that's how I make sense of it. And that's a fantastic question, Carlos, and I think that it probably should have been, I should have said that in the stream to help people understand what's really going on. All right, there are so many other comments below the last question notice, which happened here. I know I'm going for about an hour and a half. I know that I'm not going to be able to get to all of you guys, but I just want to say that I appreciate you. In the future, if you want to get your question in, usually this last question notice, is where I have to stop, just because there are so many great questions above it that I answer. Sometimes I go a little past it if I have time, but that is not today. And so you'll want to get here within the first, 15 minutes of the stream to make sure your question can get posted. You just post it in the chat before this happens. All right, so I know I have 2 more things I got to do. So here they are. First thing I got to do is announce that Heidi Faller is the Student Hub Student of the Week. So congratulations, Heidi. We're recognizing you for consistently providing encouragement, which we love in the Student Hub, for that community, and offering help to others understand while working through your own healing. So I like to say, if you want to help yourself, teach others, help others, and you'll get buckets. You will get so much in return, because it's a really fantastic way to learn and to, karma might even play a role, but that's a fantastic thing. Heidi, really appreciate that. Your daily engagement shows true dedication to yourself and this program. And I'm also going to say, what I just said might even be a selfish motivation to help others, but Heidi's probably helping others just out of the kindness of her heart. So thank you, Heidi, and also working through your own problems and healing. So just encourage you to keep going. And we're honoring you by adding a month to your membership. So thank you, Heidi, and I hope this inspires others to do the same. You have to do nothing. We will add a month from the back end. So that will be taken care of for you. And I think there was a prepared question in that message. So hopefully this is the one. I don't know what this is. Nope, not that one. So here it is. We have a prepared question from Rosemary Benjamin. And I want to move this over. Not that I have OCD, but it wasn't centered. That might bother people with OCD. So, side plank stability and scoliosis. My hip got significantly worse, which led me to seek out CBT and hip MRIs. But I am at a point where I can barely walk, especially during the later part of the day. If my hip is that bad, is it not repairable, right? Let's answer that. I think no matter where you are in your current condition, there is opportunity to improve your situation. I have helped people who had hip surgery scheduled to the point where they canceled their surgery and they were completely out of pain. Actually, the first time this happened to me, I was working in a clinic and I had a patient who just stopped showing up. I treated her 2, maybe 3 visits and never saw her again. And later it was reported that she canceled her surgery and got on with her life. She had bilateral hip surgery scheduled. So it was pretty bad. I remember it was pretty bad for her. She wasn't walking right. I'm just trying to give you hope here, Rosemary. And definitely there's been a lot of reports of students in the program who have canceled their surgeries. So that's just for hope. And then the actual practical, thing I can say to you is, if you can have a better day, I know that you can build on that. I'm 100% sure. So restoring balance in your body happens over a period of a long timeline. And so we're looking for 1% improvements day by day. You may still be in pain tomorrow, but if you're in less pain than you were yesterday, then that is nothing but an indicator to me that you can do another 1% improvement and another 1% improvement, and you're basically getting compound interest there. So you're repairable. Muscular balance is a tricky thing, but you can strive for balance. You can improve the function and the joint congruency in your hips. If your hip joint is not congruent, you might be grinding right there on the lip of your acetabulum, which is just an part of your anatomy. So we bring that ball back into the socket, and you can feel a lot better. So that's a really common thing that happens with the hip. You say, I hope by addressing my poor hormone health that possibly with CBT I can avoid any back fusions or injections that I have found only are a temporary fix. I just don't know what can be done to repair my hip. I don't feel like any amount of exercise will change the articular cartilage or the joint space being completely effaced. Lastly, if I need a replacement, what is your opinion of anterior versus lateral hip surgery? Okay, so I do have some things to say about this. So I was just talking about the ball and the socket, and we're going to go back to this example. If you are like this, which is what happens, which is why people get femoral acetabular impingement. This is the acetabulum, and this is the femur, ball and socket, and it impinges right here. The femur moves forward in the joint, and it's grinding, and the joint capsule can get caught there and impinged, and it can cause a tear. All the wear down is happening here. So yeah, your cartilage, as you mentioned, might be bone on bone. But if you do this, the cartilage here is still intact. So you can be bone on bone and still have a lot of cartilage in the congruent form of the joint to live a completely normal life. And I know there's a lot of people that do that, and they have been told, oh, I'm bone on bone, and they can continue living a completely normal life. So there's no way for me to say that you're done for. It would be hard for me to say that, and I have hope that you can improve your life by restoring joint congruency. And the way to do that is through muscular balance around your hip and your pelvis, which is often strengthening the glutes, the muscles on the back of your hips, and lengthening the hip flexors, the muscles that are pulling that femur forward in the joint. The glutes pull it back in the joint into the socket. Okay, so what is your opinion on anterior versus lateral hip surgery? So if you're talking about getting a hip replacement, which is a relatively successful surgery, I will say. I'd say that, joint replacements are pretty good. It's very invasive, and you're going to be set back for, 6 months or longer, but it's successful. Lateral or anterior? I would prefer lateral because the anterior is going to it's going to create some trauma to your abdominal muscles, which are already just typically very inhibited in a lot of people. And it can be really hard to come back from abdominal muscle trauma and get that muscle tone back that we really need for healthy spine and healthy posture and healthy support. So I just feel like the lateral approach of a hip replacement is less invasive to the abdominal muscles, and so that's my opinion on that. So hopefully that is helpful to you, Rosemary. And that was posted in a lesson called Side Plank Stability and Scoliosis. That actually seems like the question was not related to the lesson. So that's it for today, everyone. I will just take a peek back in the chat, and I know that Carlos still here. All right, glad you heard my question. And glad you showed up today, Carlos. Hopefully you can find a way to portray whatever this weekly live stream that we do on the website so that people can get an idea of what actually is going on here. So appreciate you, Carlos. Appreciate everyone who shows up here live, leaning into your health. It definitely makes myself and the team, the CBT Dream Team of support people that we have, want to lean back and support you as much as we can. So keep going, and we will be back next week. Topics are, recommendations are welcome for a topic, future stream topics. This was a recommendation. Inversion table spinal decompression was recommended by you, the students. So we do take your recommendations and turn them into streams. So submit those in the Student Hub, and until next time, get down on the floor and connect to your core. All right, everyone. I will see you next week. Take care.